We're conditioned to believe in a finish line. In the financial independence community, we treat the number like a holy relic. We're told that once we cross that threshold, whether it's 1.5 million, 3 million, or 10 million, a physical barrier drops between us and the chaos of the world. We assume we become untouchable. But I want you to imagine a scenario that is increasingly common in the late 2020s. You retired 10 years ago. You're 52. You've spent a decade traveling, waking up without an alarm, and finally feeling like the master of your own time. Then, the sequence of risk hits. Inflation, which was supposed to be a stable 2%, spikes to 8% for 3 years straight. The market enters a lost decade where returns are flat or negative. Suddenly, your annual withdrawal doesn't buy what it used to. You need 30% more just to maintain the same standard of living, but your portfolio is shrinking. You look at your partner, and for the first time in a decade, you feel that cold, familiar knot of work-related anxiety, except now you have no career to go back to. Your skills are 10 years out of date. You are functionally a stranger to the modern economy. This isn't a horror story. It's the survival paradox. Today, we are tearing down the 25x standard. We are going to look at why the math of the 1990s is failing the retirees of today, and why the safety buffer of 33x might be the only thing standing between you and a return to the workforce at age 75. To understand why the 25x rule is cracking, we have to look at its origin. In 1994, William Bengen looked at historical data and concluded that a 4% withdrawal rate was the safe maximum. This became the 25x rule because of the math. But there's a massive asterisk on Bengen's data. It was based on a 30-year window. If you retire at 65, 30 years is a perfect success metric. But the FIRE movement isn't about age 65. It's about age 35, 40, or 45. If you retire at 40, a 30-year window leaves you exposed at age 70, exactly when your medical costs typically begin to climb. In a 60-year scenario, the failure rate of the 25x rule doesn't just increase, it accelerates. When you extend the timeline, the probability of encountering a black swan event, a 1929-style crash, or a 1970s-style stagflation hits nearly 100%. If you use the 25x rule for a 60-year retirement, you aren't safe. You are a passenger on a plane that has enough fuel for half the trip, praying for a tailwind that might never come. This is where the 33x rule enters the conversation. By aiming for 33 times your annual expenses, you drop your withdrawal rate to roughly 3%. Why does a 1% difference matter? In the world of compounding, 1% is the difference between a forest and a desert. The 25x portfolio, 1.25 million for 50,000 spend, is riding the edge. You need the market to perform close to its historical average of 10% to keep up with inflation. The 33x portfolio, 1.65 million for 50,000 spend, you've built a moat. Even if the market returns 5% for a decade, your 3% withdrawal leaves 2% behind to fight inflation. My name is David, and I've spent the last decade analyzing the psychological toll of these numbers. The brutal trade-off is that to get from 25x to 33x, most people have to work an extra 5 to 8 years. Those are years where you have your health and your energy. Is perfect safety in your 80s worth the highest quality years of your 40s? This is the central dilemma of modern finance. Let's talk about the monster under the bed: sequence risk. The 25x rule assumes average returns, but the market doesn't give you 10% every year. It gives you 23%, then -8%, then 7%, then 40%. If you retire into a green year, the 25x rule works like a dream. But if you retire into a red year, like the volatility we've seen recently, you are in a fight for your life. When your portfolio drops by 15% in year one and you still take out your 4%, you're selling shares at the bottom. You're destroying your compounding machine. To recover from a 15% drop while withdrawing 4%, you don't just need a 15% gain the next year to break even. You need a miracle. The 33x rule acts as a shock absorber. It gives you the yield to live off of without touching the seeds of your harvest. If you want to avoid the survival job scenario at age 85, you have to survive the first 5 years of retirement. Those 5 years determine your destiny.
There's a psychological trap that I see constantly: one more year syndrome. I've met people with $5 million who are terrified to quit. They say, I just need to hit 35x so I can be 100% safe. Here's the truth. There is no such thing as 100% safe. You could have 100 times your expenses, and a total collapse of the global banking system or hyperinflation could still wipe you out. The 33x rule is a double-edged sword. While it provides mathematical safety, it often provides psychological imprisonment. If you spend your life waiting for a level of safety that doesn't exist, you're essentially committing slow-motion career suicide. You're choosing to spend your life in a cubicle to protect a version of yourself that might not even live to see age 80. Wealth is not just a number on a screen, it is time times autonomy. How do we solve the 25x versus 33x war? We stop treating retirement like a cliff and start treating it like a dimmer switch. In the current economy, the grand exit is a relic of the past. The smartest people I know are using the variable guardrail method. Phase 1. The liberation. You hit 25x. This is your stability number. You can pay your bills, but you're not unbreakable yet. Phase 2, the coast. Instead of quitting entirely, you quit the high-stress career. You move to part-time consulting or a passion project that earns just enough to cover your basic groceries and property taxes. Phase 3, the automatic fortress. You let your 25x portfolio sit and compound for another 5 years without touching a penny. By the time you hit age 50, that 25x has naturally grown into 33x or even 40x because you didn't cannibalize it during the transition. You get your freedom at 40 and you get your safety by 50. At the end of the day, your retirement isn't a spreadsheet, it's a strategy for living. The 25x rule is a fair weather friend. It's great when the sun is shining. The 33x rule is a storm shelter. It's hard to build, but you'll be glad it's there when the wind picks up. Before you hand in that resignation, I want you to do a resilience audit. How much of your budget is needs, fixed, versus wants, discretionary? If the market drops 15%, can you cut your spending by 15%? Do you have a side door, a way to make $1,000 a month if the economy turns? If your budget is 80% fixed costs, 25x is a ticking clock. You need to push for 33x. But if your budget is 80% travel and dining, 25x is incredibly robust because you have the power to pivot. Don't become so obsessed with the math of the future that you forget to live the reality of the present. If you're sitting there with a spreadsheet open right now, drop your number in the comments. Are you jumping at 25x or holding out for 33x? I'm David. Thanks for watching. Let's build a life you don't need to retire from.